All right, guys, welcome back. We're in the garage. Got the car here and some parts that I'm going to work on. So today what I'm messing with is my front lower control arms. Now, I currently have a EK subframe and 99 Civic Si front lower control arms, the one-piece ones that allow me to run a different style sway bar end link. But I'm going to be changing to an EG subframe. It's a little bit lighter. And in doing so, I need to change the front lower control arms to match. So I've got a pretty fresh set of Integra front lower control arms, and I'm here to upgrade them. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why don't you just go buy like Hard Race or True Hard or PCI, which I would have loved to have bought. But I've had some stuff on mine now that have worked for a really long time, and I want to share that with you. Now, this is some old school stuff, right? The new school stuff is all, spherical, and, it doesn't leave a lot of room for play, but, it stiffens up the car a lot of bit. I still like to drive my car in the street. Although it's primarily a race car, I do still drive it in the street. So I need some type of give in my suspension, a little bit. So I'm going to show you what I've got, what I'm going to be putting into these control arms to make them work a little better for me and my specific application. Now, this is substantially cheaper, in my opinion, than going to buy like some Hard Race, again, True Hard or PCI. Not saying that those aren't good, because those are definitely good options. If you don't have any arms to use, then by all means, go buy one of those and use that. But this is just what works for me. This is why I use it, and I'm going to show you right now exactly what it is. Fresh set of Integra front lower control arms with the holes for the sway bar bushings. All right, well, the sway bar end links, and then the D-ring goes over there. So anyways, fresh set of arms. Like I said, they do have some wear in them. Could I get away with this? Maybe, but I'd rather not. So what I'm going to do is replace those old busty encrusted bushings, which really aren't that bad, with some new polyurethane energy suspension bushings, right? I have two kits here. Two different part numbers are needed to get this whole arm complete. So one part number comes with the bushing for the rear of the control arm that mounts to the subframe, the compliance bushing, and some stuff for the upper control arms. We'll talk about those later. And the second box comes with the stuff needed for here, which is where the shock fork goes, and the top of the shock to give some bushings for that. So now let's take a look. The part number for this first kit is 16.3105G. Right? I personally like the black bushings. I've used the red ones in the past, and they seem to squeak for some reason. I don't know. But the black ones seem to work better, in my opinion, for my applications. Right, so these two are going to be for the compliance bushings. These two right here are going to be for the rear part of the control arm that bolts into the subframe. There's collars for these things, right? So these are going to be for the compliance bushings there. And then these guys are for the EG/DC specific front upper control arms. Right, so you know how there's a set of uprights on those control arms, right, like these? So those bushings would replace this part right here with those extra collars. Now, since I have an EK, I don't have these upright pieces on my front upper control arm. Plus, I have aftermarket front upper control arms anyway. Now, so we went over that kit. The second kit is 16.8102G. This kit is going to specifically be for, sorry, that's the lube they give you, specifically be for the part where the shock fork goes. All right, so once I take this bushing out, I push this in, one on each side, and then a collar in the middle, and then the shock fork will go right over the top. Now, how do I get those bushings out? What I've found works for me is I'll get a drill bit and I'll drill multiple holes all the way around this bushing, as close as I can to each other, and then I'll either try to hammer the center sleeve out, or I'll end up burning whatever's left over and pushing it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the control arm section first. We're going to get the compliance bushings done, and then we'll get the rear bushing. Again, that bushing's for the part of the arm that goes into the subframe. We're going to knock that out, and then we'll get into the shock fork one. Oh, my bad. So these 4 bushings here, 1, 2, 3, 4, is all I need for this from this kit. These other ones here, these cone looking ones, are actually for the shock top, the top of the shock. Let me see if I can give you an example. Actually, perfect. I got a set of shocks right here. So this would go right into the top part of the shock and give you a little stiffer application. But these are already from ground control. These are good to go. So I don't need to update these. Those are old and for sale. But anyways, now you kind of see why I don't need those pieces, and all I really needed was this. So these 2 kits here ran me $100. $100 isn't that bad, right? $100 to change all those bushings for arms that I already had. Well, I didn't have them. My boy Steven gifted them to me, so I appreciate you, bro. Yeah, so I got these arms for free. Right, but if you already have an Integra or Civic, whether it's EG or EK, you can buy these bushings for $100 and do the same thing. A little bit of elbow grease, a couple hours worth of work, and you'll be good to go. So I'm going to dive into this. Like I said, I'm going to start with the compliance bushings and then move into the rear bushing. We're going to start with the larger kit first. Like I said, I'm starting with the compliance bushing. All right, I've already loosened this nut. It's a 19 millimeter head nut. Take this off. You've got 2 large washers. All right, you got to remember the orientation of these washers. So if you see they're beveled a little bit, all right, the bevel goes in. All right, so we're going to set this aside, pull the compliance bushing off, and take the second washer. Again, the bevel goes on the inside. All right, so we're going to take both of these washers off, set this stuff aside, and now I get to work with this bushing. So I'm gonna start with getting this sleeve out in the middle. I think I can push that out, and then I have to try and find a way to get this bushing out of this compliance arm. All right, if you see there's a sleeve welded in place, I need to leave that sleeve there. Just got to get this collar and the bushing itself out. All right, so here we are. I tried some stuff, epically failed. I tried to hammer this middle sleeve out. My old one, I guess since they were so terrible, the sleeve just came right out. Apparently the sleeve is attached to the rubber itself. So what I ended up doing was I took a razor blade. I wanted to see if this worked. And I cut a corner of the rubber off. Literally all I had to do was cut straight down. Right, maybe a little different for the EK, but I just cut straight down here. Took a few cuts to get through it, and took a screwdriver, and literally this thing just went bloop, flopped right out. So if you look now, if I continue this going around, right, so let's say I cut over here now, right, I start to give space for the middle part of the bushing to come out. So I'm just going to keep doing this all the way around. Take little chunks off, little chunk, little chunk, little chunk, until I get the outside edge of this gone, and then I can push the whole thing through. All right, the 4 pieces are cut off. All right, I cut 4 sides off, and then what I ended up doing was there was a little overlap at the end, so I just had to take the knife at a little bit of an angle. I think you can see here, so that way I can fit within the piece. All right, so now I'm going to try and push this piece out. All right, I'm going to push this way, and it should come out the other side. All right, now I know I got some scratches here. I'll cover those up with some paint, and this thing will be good as new. Let's push this thing out. All right, there we go. Right, see, bushing is out. I forgot to push record, but basically all I did was this side was sticking up like this. All right, I put this in the vise. Well, not in the vise. I actually put it here. I had this random hole from an old drill press. And I took the hammer and whacked it out. And I took a little bit of elbow grease. Well, not grease, but I needed some strength. Had to get that through. So Probably what I'm gonna do on the next one is wedge a screwdriver in between and try to get some WD-40 in here to try to make this move a little freer. So one is out. I'm gonna clean up the battle scars from the hammer and the knife. We'll put some paint on that, and then we'll get the new compliance bushing in. Gotta look at their instructions because there's a specific way it goes in. Compliance bushing arm is ready to go. Just touched up the outer edge with some paint marker that I have. I've got the new compliance bushing in my hand. If you look, the ends are not the same, right? There's a difference. This one has a flat edge at the top. This one does not. So the instructions state that when putting this in, the bushing should be in this direction. And what that means is, if we look down here, it says engraved part number 3285 on side facing front of vehicle. So I got to look for the engraved part number on here. There it is. 3285 goes towards the front of the vehicle. So this is the left arm, right? L. This compliance part goes just like this with the extra little bolt for the sway bar D bracket towards the front of the car. So I know that when I have this arm out, the part number, where was it, has to go to the front. Now it doesn't mean I have to push in from this end. This side is obviously going to be easier to push in, right? Because I don't have the flat portion. It looks a little smaller in diameter. I have a lot more surface that I can use to put through this piece. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this applied grease. Comes in a little tub, right? Please be careful with this stuff. Once this stuff gets on your fingers, it's everywhere. It's like anti-seize. You get one drip on it and then you're covered in it. You look like the Tin Man. So I'm just going to throw some gloves on, put a little bit of this on the edge, the outer edge here, and then the edge of the compliance part, as well as some on the inside and some on this part of the bushing, right? I want to get as much lubrication on this and this as I can. All right, so I actually had a smaller piece of lube from an old set that I had. So I need to remember that this piece goes forward, right? And the number portion has to be towards the front of the vehicle. So I know I'm going to take this and put some along this part, right? So I'm just going to zigzag it over here, and then I'll mush it in later, as well as here. I need to put some on this end to try to make it a little easier to go into the arm. So now I'm just going to use my finger, smudge this around. This stuff gets everywhere and you don't even notice because it's clear. Now I'm going to put some inside the compliance part just to try to make this a little easier to go in. One thing I like to do that some people may not talk about or may not do is I like to put some grease on the face. I don't know if you guys can see of these bushings, like in the corner here. The reason being is this is what's probably going to end up rotating on the metal of this carrier, right? So if I don't have grease there, it may tend to squeak, or it may tend to wear out the bushing a little prematurely, and I want to avoid that. So if I have some on both sides, it's going to help me prevent some potential premature wear, or at least that's how my brain sees it, right? I'd rather have and not need than need and not have. All right, so now I'm just going to clean off this glove real quick. Brake cleaner gets this stuff off real good. So put some brake cleaner on my rag, wipe down my finger. All right, and now, like I said, I know this part goes forward and the part number has to be forward, right? Where's that part number again? Right here. All right, so now I'm gonna take this, try to shove this guy in here. All right, once it goes in, you just got to keep pushing till it goes all the way through. We are good to go. That part was easy enough. Now, I need to take the sleeve, lube the sleeve up, and the inside of the bushing. I don't know if you guys can see the inside of the bushing has little grooves in it. Those grooves are going to hold some of this grease as we put it around the middle, and then we slide the bushing right in. So let's lube up these grooves. This is why they give you this big tub, because you end up going through a lot of this stuff quicker than you think. All right, so once this is all lubed up and we're good to go, I can take that sleeve and press the sleeve in. Again, this stuff can all be done by hand. I'm gonna take my brake cleaner rag, clean some of this stuff off again. All right, now I can take this collar and just slide it right in, just like that. Done. Bushings in, sleeve is in. Now I can place this back on the arm and put the two washers back in place. Now it may look like the sleeve or the collar is not in far enough, but what happens is when you tighten this down and you torque it, when you tighten this down and you torque it to the specs it's supposed to be, this polyurethane bushing compresses this lid in here because the hole is slightly larger, and once it compresses, everything gets nice and tight, and this should have zero play whatsoever. So now everything's set, right? I've got the control arm. Take one end of the washer. Remember, the bevel side faces in. This piece goes right in here. What I like to do with these parts is put a little bearing grease on them. A little bit of bearing grease. It took too much on my hand. Just a little bit, make my way around. This is gonna lubricate this part of the control arm and make sure that I don't end up with any rust between the inside sleeve and this part of the control arm. So I'll do that. I also put a little bit on the threads right here, so when I put the nut back on, that goes on nice and good. Put this one over the front, take this nut, put this on, and as you see, this will start to compress. Let me get a wrench for this. This part right here will start to compress. See how it kind of squeezes itself in there? Got some of that lube squeezing out of the edges that I showed you that I put onto it. So now I know I'm gonna hit the collar soon. All right, I'm starting to feel the collar. Now I can rotate this, right? All set. Like I said, as I tightened it up, some of that lube squeezes out, and yeah, see, it actually gets everywhere. It's already all over here. Sheesh. Now this is complete. I just still have to torque this, but I'll do that a little bit later. Next, I'm moving on to the rear part of the control arm, right? This is the part that goes into the subframe. So in order to do that, again, I need to get this bushing out. So like I told you guys before, I'm gonna take a drill bit and drill through here as many holes as I can to take as much material out as I can. Hopefully I don't break any bits. That would suck. Okay, collar's out, right? Sleeve is still in here. You can see where I drilled all the way around it. I did snap 2 bits though, so that sucks. But yeah, you can see I drilled all the way around it as much as I could. And then what I kind of did was I started going at an angle on some of them as much as I could to try to break up the cross parts of it, right? And then I just took a big channel locks. You don't have to use one that big, but I just twisted it out, right? I twisted this thing back and forth, rotated it, and eventually it came out. Read the instructions. That's what they're there for. I wasted time, right? I thought I knew it. I made a mistake. So this sleeve that the original bushing stayed into, right? So for better example, right, this went in like this, and it was attached to that sleeve there. Apparently the EGDC requires me to remove that sleeve. That's why it's important to read instructions. Where was it? I think it says number 4. Remove the lower control arm, press out the inner control arm bushing and shell from position from the control arm. Unbolt the rear mount of the control arm, press out the rubber bushing and sleeve from the mount. So I need to press out that sleeve as well. So I'm probably gonna end up cutting this with a hacksaw or something. I don't wanna go too far through it, but yeah, don't do what I did. All right, sleeve is out. This is it. Had to hammer this thing out, but first, like I said, I cut a slit in it. I don't know if you guys can make that out. I used the hacksaw. Right, this saw right here, you can undo this blade. I slid it through, reattached it, and then sawed it away. I made sure not to touch the control arm. That's why I kind of had to hammer so much. On the next one, I am gonna do a second cut in it. So if you see here, I started to cut to try to relieve some stress. So I'm gonna cut 2 sides. It should make this come apart a lot easier on the next arm. So yeah, do that. Don't just cut one. So now I can take the new bushings. Where are they? Right here. All right. I can lube them up, lube up the arm, and then push them right in. So that's what I'm gonna get into now. Bam, there it is. Bushings in. Basically did the same thing as you saw. I greased the inside, then I greased the outside of the bushing and the inner lip. That way, if the bushing rotates, it's not going to squeak on the arm itself. I used the control arm to press the bushing in. Then I did the same thing for the other bushing. And then again, lubed the inside of the bushing because it's got those grooves in it. So it's going to use those grooves to hold that lube to keep the collar lubricated. So this arm is almost done. Moving on to the next one. It is literally rinse and repeat from this bushing to that one. If you read the instructions, I need to remove both the bushing, the rubber part, and the collar. Right, so the instructions stated right here. I'll read it out to you. I believe it's number 4. Remove the lower control arm from the vehicle. Remove the lower shock strut bushing, including the shell from the lower control arm. A hydraulic press will be needed. Again, I didn't have a press to use. Some of you guys might. So like I did before, I'm just going to drill a bunch of holes around, get this piece out. And now instead of cleaning all the rubber out, I'm just going to cut 2 slits in it with the hacksaw, right? The length of it, so I can push the shell out. Just remove the bushing, lubricate the inside of the hole in the barrel, grease all sides of the bushing that contact metal, press in the energy bushing, grease the sleeve, and press into the bushing. See the diagram. So rinse and repeat. So guys, this is it. I know the video is starting to get a little long, It is literally rinse and repeat for the other bushing to what we did here. So we got to remove the entire bushing with the shell on both of them, and then we can push the new bushing in. Arms are looking fresh. All the bushings complete. Everything's looking nice and mint. Good set of control arms to put in the car. So I want to say thank you guys. I hope this was informational. I hope you guys got some good insight as to why you should read instructions and not be like me. So as always, be well, stay safe. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.